Eugene stared at his coffee mug, trying to process what his Valkyrian neighbor had just said. Briar stood in the doorway of his quarters aboard the Celestial Harmony, her iridescent skin shifting through shades of violet and blue. What he'd learned was embarrassment in her species. "I apologize if that was too forward," Briar said, her translator implant rendering her melodic speech into crisp English. "I forget that humans have different social protocols regarding partnership discussions." "No, it's fine," Eugene replied, though his mind was still catching up. 2 years without a male partner. For a Valkyrian, that was... He did the mental math. Their years were roughly equivalent to Earth years, but their reproductive cycles. Then it hit him. She didn't mean a romantic partner. She meant literally any male of her species. "Briar," he said slowly, setting down his mug. "When you say male partner, you mean for reproduction, right? Not just companionship." Her facial tendrils rippled with what might have been confusion. "Is there a difference for humans?" Eugene ran a hand through his hair. "Yeah, big difference. But wait, you haven't encountered a male Valkyrian in 2 years. 2.3 standard years," she corrected, moving further into his quarters. The door hissed shut behind her. "My posting on this station was meant to be temporary. 6 months, they said. Then the war began. The sector conflict. Eugene knew it well. He'd been stationed here for 18 months himself, ever since his engineering contract with the Galactic Coalition had been extended indefinitely. The fighting between the Dravian Empire and the Free Worlds had turned half the trade routes into death traps. Ships that used to dock here weekly now came quarterly, if at all. "I didn't realize Valkyrians needed." He trailed off, uncertain how to phrase it delicately. "Regular genetic recalibration," Briar supplied, her skin now settling into a resigned gray. "Our species evolved on a world with high mutation rates. We require periodic exchange of genetic material to maintain cellular stability. Without it, we begin to deteriorate." Eugene felt his stomach drop. Deteriorate how? Slowly at first. Fatigue, minor cognitive impairment. Eventually, system failures. She said it matter-of-factly, as if discussing a mechanical malfunction rather than her own mortality. "I have perhaps another standard year before it becomes critical." Jesus Christ. Eugene stood abruptly, nearly knocking over his chair. "Have you talked to the station commander? Surely they can arrange transport through contested space." Briar's laugh was bitter, a sound her species rarely made. 3 supply ships have been destroyed this month alone. Commander Talvex won't authorize civilian transport for non-emergency medical situations. By the time my condition qualifies as an emergency, I'll be too unstable to survive the journey. Eugene paced his small quarters, his engineering mind already working through solutions. "What about genetic samples? Could we have some shipped here, stored in stasis?" "The biological material degrades too quickly, even in stasis. It must be fresh." The way she said the word, with clinical detachment, made it somehow worse. "I've accepted my situation, Eugene. I merely mentioned it because we were discussing why I declined the promotion to Deep Space Survey. I can't afford to move further from any possibility of no." Eugene turned to face her. "Absolutely not. We're not accepting this." Briar's tendrils stilled, her alien features unreadable to him even after months of friendship. "What do you propose?" "I'm human," Eugene said, the idea forming even as he spoke. "We're the newcomers to this galactic community, right? The species everyone's still trying to figure out. We're genetically promiscuous, compatible with more alien species than anyone expected." "What if?" "It wouldn't work," Briar interrupted, but her skin had shifted to an interested amber. "Our biologies are too different." "Maybe, or maybe not." Eugene pulled up his workstation, fingers flying across the holographic interface. "I've been reading the xenobiology databases. Humans have this weird trait. Our DNA is remarkably adaptable. We've got junk DNA from dozens of extinct species, viral insertions, retrotransposons. We're like a genetic junkyard, and somehow it all works." Briar moved closer, watching the data scroll past. "You're suggesting a compatibility test." "I'm suggesting we ask Dr. Finn to run a simulation. If there's even a chance that human genetic material could provide the stabilization you need." "It's unprecedented," Briar said softly. But her skin was brightening, cycling through hopeful yellows and greens. "Interspecies genetic therapy. The Medical Ethics Board would need to approve. then we'll apply. Today, Eugene grabbed his jacket. Come on. What? The question stopped him at the door. Briar stood in the center of his quarters, her usually composed alien features showing something raw and vulnerable. Why would you do this for me? Eugene thought about the past 6 months. Shared meals in the station's mess hall. Briar teaching him the basics of quantum resonance theory while he helped her understand human cinema. Long night shifts in the observation deck, watching distant stars and wondering if the war would ever end. She'd become his closest friend on this isolated station at the edge of nowhere. Because you're my neighbor, Eugene said simply. And because humans don't leave their people behind. I'm not human, Briar pointed out. Eugene smiled. You are now. Dr. Finn's initial scans were promising. More than promising, they were revolutionary. Human genetic material, it turned out, had enough variability and adaptogenic properties to potentially trigger Briar's cellular recalibration mechanisms. It wasn't a perfect match, but it might be enough to buy her time, years, perhaps decades, until she could safely return to her homeworld. 3 days later, Eugene sat in the medical bay while Dr. Finn prepared the genetic transfer procedure. Briar was in the adjacent room, undergoing her own preparatory treatments. This is highly irregular, Dr. Finn muttered, his insectoid mandibles clicking nervously. If this works, you'll have changed xenomedicine forever. If it doesn't, it'll work, Eugene said with more confidence than he felt that it did. Against all odds, against every statistical probability in the galactic medical databases, it worked. Human genetic material, messy, chaotic, stubbornly adaptive, provided exactly what Briar's Valkyrian biology needed. 6 weeks later, Briar's skin had returned to its healthy, opalescent sheen. Her energy had returned, her cognitive tests showing marked improvement. The medical journals are requesting interviews, she told Eugene over coffee in his quarters, their regular meeting spot. They're calling it the human protocol. They think it might work for other species facing similar compatibility issues. Humanity's contribution to the galaxy, Eugene said with a wry smile. Turns out we're good for something besides building engines and starting bar fights. Briar's tendrils rippled with amusement. You saved my life, Eugene. You barely knew me, and you volunteered to undergo an experimental procedure with unknown risks. I knew you well enough, Eugene replied. Besides, what are neighbors for? Briar reached across the table, her three-fingered hand covering his. The gesture was human, learned from him, and it made Eugene's chest tight. When this war ends, she said quietly, when I return to my homeworld, would you consider visiting? I would like my family to meet you. Eugene squeezed her hand gently. I'd like that. Outside the viewport, stars wheeled in their eternal dance. The war continued. Ships still burned in the darkness. But in one small station at the edge of the conflict, two beings from different worlds had found something unexpected. Proof that kindness could transcend biology, that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their technology or their weapons, but in their stubborn refusal to accept that some problems were unsolvable, some bonds, it turned out, were universal.